Okay, so welcome to the CalFresh Outreach Social Media Workgroup webinar. I believe that this is the third one that we've done. So we're still kind of getting started with it, but we definitely have had some good conversations in the past ones and some good idea sharing and all of that. So this webinar is really meant to sort of fill in some of the gaps that we have talked about in the past and to give a little bit more guidance with some of the things that we talked about, like with the style guide, with the taglines, things like that. So we're going to just go ahead and jump right in. So just as a reminder, and this may look familiar if you've tuned into this before, the purpose of this webinar or the work group is really to build knowledge across the different sectors that we're working in. We absolutely want to create and share best practices related to social media. We definitely know at Chico State that we are not the experts. We definitely are learning as much from everyone else as possible. So we definitely we want to make this a place where people can share ideas with each other. And we also just really want to connect CalFresh outreach programs across California. So come October, we're going to have a campus as far north as College of the Siskiyous, which is very close to the California northern border. And then our furthest south campus will be UCSD. So we really are spanning the entire state, and we just want to make sure that these programs are all connected. And social media is a great way to do that. Okay, so here's just the layout of our agenda this morning. It should be a relatively quick meeting, webinar. I don't think that it's going to take the full hour, but these are the things that we're going to touch on today. So we're going to first go over the branding and style guide. I know that we mentioned that, I think, on the last webinar. There were some questions about, what is proper branding? What proper color should we be using? That type of thing. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over the tagline part. I know that a lot of our campuses are trying to make sure that they're using the full funded line on all of their social media posts. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to make it a little bit easier. And then I also have Lindsay with me this morning, and she's going to talk about Instagram stories and highlights. And then she's also going to touch on student testimonials and the process that we've sort of developed to capture those. And then finally, we're going to go into the $15 CalFresh challenge. Okay, so it was about 2008 that the program formerly known as food stamps transitioned into SNAP, which was a supplemental nutrition assistance program. And so that's when this change in branding really started happening, is because that food stamps word or name was really, it just didn't feel very good for people to use anymore. Not only were they not actually stamps anymore, the name food stamps really just did not capture the meaning of the program and what it should be used for. So in 2008, they did change it to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. I also want to note that supplemental part, that is really important, because this program is absolutely made to supplement a grocery budget. It's not always meant to be the full amount that someone should be spending on groceries, but oftentimes it is. But it really is meant to just supplement what they may already have. After that, we, of course, in California, we want to do things a little bit different than all the other states. So we actually adopted the name CalFresh in about 2010. We branded it that way after there was a lot of focus groups and studies, and all sorts of there was all sorts of research done about what name would work best for our state and what name would really capture what the program was trying to do. I just touched on the fact that stamps didn't exist anymore, so we didn't want anything close to that. And we also really wanted something that would capture our very agriculturally rich community, our state, and we also really wanted to capture that healthy living piece of it. And SNAP definitely sounds better than food stamps, but California wanted it to sound a little bit healthier and a little bit fresher, so that's how they came up with CalFresh. And just a reminder too, CalFresh is always spelled with a capital C and a capital F with no space in between, except for the logo that you see on the bottom of the screen, which is all lowercase. So when you are putting together materials or posting on social media using the CalFresh logos, you should definitely go to this source right here when you are trying to get the clearest logo that you can. I mean, you can Google the logo and some of those results will be just fine, but if you want to use the actual original logos, this is a link for that. This is through the CDSS website, and they have a bunch of options that you can choose from. They have a logo in black, color, gray, all these different formats, and they're really clear and they're really big, so you can use them and they'll look really crisp on your materials. Okay, so CDSS, California Department of Social Services, has also put together a style guide. And so this is definitely a good place to start if you're not familiar with, doing social media or creating flyers, things like that, then this is a really good place to start. There's all of these different options for the logos. These are all the approved logos that you can use. These black ones here at the end, these are more for printed materials that are going to be in black and white. So you can absolutely use those, and you can pull them all from this site. And then down at the bottom, there's a couple examples of the logos you might want to use if you're trying to post on a different colored background. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I just had to mute everyone. I was hearing a little bit of feedback. So, okay. So those are the logos that you can use, and that was the site that you could find them at. But the CalFresh Style Guide also goes over a couple of other points to keep in mind if you're developing materials. So they definitely have I would say not an approved typography, but they definitely have a recommended one. And these are shown on the left right here. So the Helvetica types of fonts are definitely what you're going to see on, the state brochures and flyers and all of those sorts of things. So that definitely has a certain vibe to it, and you'll notice that there's a consistency with the state materials and these fonts. And then the same goes for these color palettes. So these colors are, I think these top ones are the ones that are actually in the logo, and then these ones down here are ones that you would see used as secondary colors or, maybe accent colors. And so these colors all kind of have, that similar vibe, and they all probably remind you of the logo. Okay, so I think, Carla, you're on the call. I have to say I stole your flyer because it's so beautiful. But I just want to show the difference between, a state-funded material that uses those specific fonts and those specific colors versus something that's a little bit more creative. So definitely the one on the left has a certain vibe to it. And even though, it's definitely it's nice and it's inviting, but it may not be so inviting for our student population. So that is definitely something to keep in mind when you're creating posts or creating flyers, anything like that. The one on the right from CSU Northridge is definitely more appealing to, the student demographic. It's definitely a little bit fresher. It's a little bit more relevant. It's just a little bit more visually pleasing to that student population. So even though we just talked about those style guidelines and what the state has put out, you definitely have the freedom to create something a lot more creative and a lot more appealing to your specific population. So the state guidelines are definitely a place that you can get started with, and you can definitely keep those in mind, but you absolutely have the freedom to do something different as well. Okay, so here's a couple more examples. We have our Chico State CalFresh Day flyer on the left, and then there's another example on the right from Fresno State. these ones definitely use different colors than the ones that we just talked about, and they just have a different vibe to them. They feel a little bit different. They might be more appealing to a student than using some of those other brighter or more, I wouldn't say more harsh colors, but more plain colors. These are definitely a little bit more appealing to that specific demographic, I would say. Okay, so just a few style guide tips for your social media. It's really good to use fun and positive colors, and definitely avoid colors that are too dark or harsh. For example, the colors we were looking at before with the really dark reds, those are really hard to use in a big way. So, I mean, those are good accent colors sometimes, but they definitely are, they could be a little bit harsh sometimes. So definitely just keeping in mind that you want to capture, you know, a certain vibe with your post, and you don't want to be too off-putting or too out there. So just keep that in mind. It's always good to incorporate healthy foods into your posts. So like the Northridge example that I showed before, there was, you know, a beautiful pineapple, and it just really had that fresh sort of feeling, which is what we're trying to promote with this entire program. So really just using those healthy foods as a visual is really appealing to students. Another really good point is to make your posts short and to the point. It's really helpful if, you know, especially places like Instagram, if you're posting, you know, you're posting these small pictures that students aren't really going to probably read a wall of text on. It's really good to just post, you know, the bullet points, just what they need to know, and not making it too wordy, because I know when I'm scrolling through my own Instagram, I usually do not stop on things like that. And a lot of our students are the same way. So just making sure to keep it condensed and short and to the point is really important as well. It's also important to, you know, avoid posting flyers that are, you know, they kind of going along with the last point I talked about. Avoid posting flyers with too many words. Again, when you have, you know, a flyer that you created that might be printed out and posted around campus, that's one thing, but it might not really scale down to the right size when you're posting on social media. So just making sure that, you know, the things that you post are not too wordy. Okay, so I know this did come up on the last meeting or two, and so Jenny Breed, our program director, and us talked about what was acceptable for taglines. So as part of receiving funding through CBSS to do this work, whatever materials are created, they do need to have this specific tagline that says, on this next page, it says, funded by USDA SNAP, known in California as CalFresh, an equal opportunity provider and employer, and the California Department of Social Services. So if you notice, you know, on our pre-screens or our student exemption checklist, even our flyers, they all have this tagline because it's part of the requirements of using the funding to create those materials. So you're going to see it on all of that kind of stuff. And we really did go back and forth with this because the guidance that's provided doesn't really address social media posts, and it doesn't really define posts as materials like what I just described. So after much conversation about it, we did interpret it to mean that, you know, that tagline still needs to be on all those materials, but it does not necessarily need to be on all of your social media posts. I mean, on this example that you can see right here, it's not even really readable, especially, I mean, this is a blown up version, but on Instagram, this is going to be so small, no one's really going to read it anyways. So it's definitely okay to not include, it's definitely okay to not include this tagline on your actual social media posts. Flyers and all of that, though, it still needs to be there. I do want to say, though, that if you are not going to be using this on your social media posts, you should have a link in your bio of, you know, like your Instagram, your Twitter, whatever it may be, that does come back to your website where someone could find more information about your program, and that website should have that tagline somewhere. So really doing it that way satisfies that requirement, and that's sufficient enough to not have to include it on every single post. So yeah, just as simple as plugging in your website like we've done here will satisfy that requirement. So that's good news, right? I definitely have noticed, when those are included on the post, it takes away from it. It takes away from the design. It doesn't make it as aesthetically pleasing. So I think this is a really good sort of compromise. Okay, so now we're on to the part about Instagram stories. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Lindsay, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that. So Lindsay, let me see if I can unmute you. Lindsay, are you there? I am. Can you hear me? Yes, I can. Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So I'm just going to discuss Instagram stories really quick and then get into some testimonial pieces as well. So what Instagram stories are, I put this little picture here so you can see them. They're right above your normal feed, right below the Instagram. All those little circles, those are where, yes, exactly. Those are where the Instagram stories are found from your people that you are following. And what they do is they really make a direct message to your followers. We really see that the main campuses like the Chico State campus, Sac State, we see them using them a lot just to connect to followers. They do takeovers where students just talk all day and so show what day-to-day life is like. And I've actually been reading a lot about them, and they're gaining more activity than normal posts. They're almost seen twice as much as the normal post is. So it's a great way to promote what one of your normal posts would be. And it just gives a more realistic or authentic view of what your profile or your company is about. So they're very cool. If you want to go ahead to the next slide. And then I just put this link in here for everyone. It was a really great article on how to use stories, and it really went in depth of all the different features they have as far as filters, stickers, how you can tag other campuses. And it was just a great article, so I just wanted to put that in there for a resource. And I would definitely go ahead and take a look at that. Just gives a little more in-depth view as to really how to use them correctly. So if we want to go to the next slide. So here we have Instagram highlights. And what highlights do is they take a story that you've already posted and allows you to directly save them onto your profile so that they never go away. So stories actually disappear within 24 hours. And now these highlights, you can see where the mouse is down there, they stay there and can be rewatched whenever someone comes to your profile. So for our Chico State profile, we have on there just like a frequently asked question highlight, what can I buy with my benefits, and then how to keep your benefits. So they're just questions that people might ask, or just kind of gives a little insight into what CalFresh is without them having to scroll through the entire profile to kind of get a feel for what this account is about. So it's a really great way to utilize a quick engagement with a possible follower. And then if we want to go on to the next slide. Yeah, so that was just a quick little overview of the highlights. Like I said, that article goes a little more in depth into it. And so now we're going to talk about some student testimonials. And I know we've talked about this in past webinars, but we had some really good interest in them. So we wanted to touch on it again. So student testimonials are a way to let students connect through personal experiences. And we've had good success with the people that we've had do testimonials so far. And these can be achieved in different ways. So you could highlight a person who's receiving CalFresh already, highlight their experience, or if you wanted to go and do a staff or a program manager, you can highlight their involvement or their experience with CalFresh. And this just gives a little personable look into what CalFresh is and what a potential CalFresh recipient would be receiving. So if you want to go on to the next slide again. So here we are going to look at some intakes that we're doing. So we're going to be starting this up again pretty soon, but we created a Google form. I think we're able to open it. And what this Google form does is it streamlines the process. So I know last time we talked about how we had a piece of paper that people were filling out. And although it worked, we just found that, sometimes students don't want to fill it out, or it's an extra 5 minutes in the office. What this Google form allowed was for us to just send them a link, and then it gives all the information that we need. And I'm going to touch on this aspect in a little bit also, but it also gives like their media release in the form, which is really cool. So basically it goes through different questions. As you can see, Brandy's filling it out just to see what it would most likely be like. And it just asks your name, phone number, personal facts, and then it continues on. I can try and provide a full filled out form for you guys later on, but it goes on to ask them certain questions, and then it asks them how much they're willing to share as far as personal facts go. If they are okay with a picture being showed, if they just want a quote, if they're okay with their name. And that goes for the media release. It's really important that we have that in there. So that was great with that. And then what's also awesome about this is that after it's completed, the Google form puts everything into an Excel sheet for you. So you can go ahead and go look at your responses, and everything's just combined in there. I think, yes, so I filled out this one just to see, but it basically just has everything in there. You can obviously zoom in when it's more. And then you have all their answers. It says the permission they give and all of that. So it's really awesome. I think we do have a chat, so let's see if we can answer any questions there also. Oh, thank you. I'll go ahead and fix that.
Thank you, Hawks, for noticing that.
Thank you. But yes, it is a really great resource so far. So we're excited to start using it soon. Yes, we haven't had it fully finished yet, but we're really excited for that. So just wanted to share how we're going to be doing that. And then if we want to go on to the next slide. What that Google form also really helped was, as I was talking about the logistics, the media release is important when we're posting pictures of people, just to make sure that we have their permission, we're not violating anyone's privacy. And we were able to really combine that media release and testimonial intake into the streamlined process with that form, which made things just a little bit easier for our students and a little more willing to share when they knew it wasn't going to be a really long process. So I think that was my last slide. But,
okay.
Yes.
Yep. It looks.
Thank you all.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for sharing all of that. We'll definitely keep working on that form a little bit more, and then we can absolutely share it with you all, and you can, create something similar on your campus if you do want to do those testimonials, which are, like Lindsay was saying, they can be super impactful, and they can also encourage students to even just have the courage to apply when they're seeing their fellow students going through similar situations and, hearing their stories or reading about their stories, they can be a lot more willing to sort of be like, okay, well, that student sounds like they're having my similar experience and CalFresh helped them, so maybe it'll help me too. So it really can help to normalize the process and destigmatize it as well. Okay, so we're cruising right along. We're at the last part of our webinar now, which is our $15 CalFresh challenge.
And so I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the CalFresh challenge that is held in May that was started a few years ago. I believe that the San Diego Hunger Coalition started that. And what that challenge is it really has people try to live on the standard amount of benefits that one person typically receives. So I believe it's about $4 a day. So we took that concept and we kind of changed it up a little bit. And so we're turning it into the $15 CalFresh challenge. So this challenge focuses on the CalFresh allotment that a household of one can receive, the minimum allotment that they can receive. So really $15 is the lowest amount that someone is going to receive. And if someone is receiving this amount, it's probably because they're working a fair amount and they're taking in, a fair amount of income. So they may only get these $15 if, a household of one is making, $1,300, $1,400. They may be in this category where they're receiving that $15 a month. And I know some people are like, okay, well, $15, that doesn't really go very far. We want to sort of play with that idea and show that it can provide you a fair amount of food. And it can, it's definitely $15 is $15. I definitely wouldn't leave it on the street if I saw it. So it's sort of just building on that idea that $15 can still be helpful. So I think many of us know that visuals and perspective can be powerful. I mean, we touched on that with the student testimonial section a few minutes ago, but really just seeing pictures of, for example, what $15 can buy someone, it can really help it click for someone. Okay, $15 is, it's not going to be my entire grocery budget, but it's definitely going to help. So this challenge can definitely be done by your CalFresh outreach staff, your interns, students, sort of whoever you would want to present this challenge to. I absolutely want to keep it open for everyone. And I also want to say that it can be themed. So you can say, okay, well, this is what $15 will help with, meal prep, or $15 could buy these snacks for the week. Things like that. So you can keep it sort of themed. So the challenge really is to gather, about $15 worth of food. We definitely want to keep it on the healthier side because that's what CalFresh is all about, healthy living. So what you can do, or have your, whoever's participating in this do, is, gather that $15 worth of food, whatever the theme may be, and we want them to take a photo of it. So like we saw before, they can take a picture of the grocery cart like this, and kind of show, like, okay, this is the $15 worth of, food to make this meal, or to make these snacks for the week. So they can do that visual. They can do a visual like this, where it's on the, where they're getting ready to pay for it. They can lay it out on the counter. They can take a picture of it however they want. We just really want to showcase all the different things that you could buy with $15. The next part of the challenge, after you get someone to take a photo of this, we definitely want you to post it on your social media. Really the point of this is getting out that, CalFresh can really, even if it's only $15, it can still provide items that will make your diet a little bit healthier, and to help supplement that. And then after you post it, we absolutely want you to tag us in it, and then we want to share these pictures as they come about. So we would love if you would participate. You yourself can participate, or you can have your interns participate. It's a great project to just really keep that perspective of why we're doing the work that we're doing. And it also will help you to, even suggest to students like, oh, well, you can buy these sorts of things, or just it kind of helps you be a little bit closer to that direct use of CalFresh. Okay, so we've reached the end of our webinar. I know that it wasn't too long this time, but I definitely want to open it up to questions if anyone has questions. I'll keep it open for a couple more minutes. And then after this
is the webinar is over, we're going to post this video onto our YouTube channel so you can go back to it, or have, you know, anyone else that you think might be interested in the social media part of this project, they can go back and watch it. And then also we can absolutely provide slides for you all as well, so that you can click on some of the links that Lindsay mentioned and things like the style guide and things like that. Okay, so yeah, well, I'll leave it open for another minute, but if you don't have any questions, have a great rest of your week, and we will hopefully see you on the next webinar. Thank you.